What's going on, guys? What's going on? What's going on? See where everyone is real quick. Not too much to talk about today, guys. By the way, I know I pretty much created a nice little TikTok video. Kind of just gives you a glance of what's pretty much ahead for this week. Hopefully, everyone has actually realized just the amount of just sheer events that we have between the economic data and the amount of earnings that we have this week. It just feels like a way for the market to just suck your money if you particularly make the wrong move or you make the most, no, I want to say wrong emotional type of move this week. So, the biggest thing to me this week is pretty much preserving cash. I think that's probably the biggest mindset I have going into this week because as you saw that we kicked off this week, today was just a shit show. I'm going to be straight up honest with you guys. Today was entirely a shit show because they literally just put us what felt like pretty much a box right now. And so I'm pretty much just in the mindset that as we go through tomorrow, we have pretty much FOMC coming up. I believe tomorrow we actually have Microsoft reporting, we have McDonald's reporting. Renee, what's going on? So we already pretty much kick off earnings right off the bat here tomorrow with some pretty big names that are likely going to be a little bit of a head changer for how SPY is going to end up reacting in the Dow. So that's something just in the mindset that I want to preserve cash, and I actually think that we may have a better follow through on everything that's happening this week. We may have a better follow through going into next week rather than forcing a lot of situations. And a lot of the tickers that I end up usually finding myself kind of trading and actively looking at, a lot of them have earnings this week. So one of the biggest things is that I don't want to get pretty much caught in buying a lot of those names that are just juiced up so much and the premiums are so elevated. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. All right. Just looking at pretty much getting into what S&P futures look like. Pretty much, you can see the little highlighted channel that you basically have a nice little ascending channel. You can also make a case for a head and shoulders type of action that's going on, and I think that's what everyone was kind of waiting on the downfall on. I was looking through chat, looking through Twitter. Everyone was just looking for the downfall on SPY. And so that didn't necessarily happen, but we had a pretty well defined neckline. You can say you have your left shoulder, you have a well defined head, and we were basically chopping it up, going up and down for most 3 quarters of the day, you could say, until we kind of just got towards the end of this right shoulder. Now, I do think that actually, since you did see at the end of the day, we had a little meltdown towards the end of the day. But what did we do? We basically just literally wicked under the trendline support, under that neckline, you want to say, and the Bears just got squeezed out entirely there. So that was pretty much just something that I kind of expected to be on the back end of that. I was expecting to get squeezed out. I didn't think the market was necessarily anticipating that they were going to just give you such a clear, straight up pattern. We were just going to get a beautiful meltdown like everyone was just picturing. And then we would just go all happy, posting 1000% gainers. I did not expect that. So the fact that they ended up squeezing us, I was glad that I was pretty much, I took a small little short to see if they actually would melt it down. I'm glad I pretty much got out break even right there. And then we just saw that explosive move right into the end of the day to the upside. So I'm going to look for a little bit more of a continuation on this little end of day squeeze that we have. And then we should see the rug pulled likely going into tomorrow, is what I would expect. ¿Qué pasa, El Lobo? What's going on? So I would expect a little bit of a pop tomorrow, and then we should anticipate the rug pull. I know that Avery pretty much also dropped a little bit of a chart. He kind of sees a little bit of a head and shoulders type of action. I think he's watching for us to go up to about 39.85 ish, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere up there. But that's basically I'm looking at pretty much going as high as what right around 39.90 is where I can see, which is basically our halfway of this entire ascending type of channel action. Now, if we do end up getting basically an invalidation of what looks like a head and shoulders, and we continue to get further movement to the north, then I'm basically looking for a breakout here, which would be up towards 40.04 is what I'm looking on S&P futures, and that's basically where we ended up breaking down from on the 22nd, which would have been on Friday. So 40.04 would be that line in the sand, in which I think is more so our top end of our range right now. If we do get a continuation of this uptrend in a strong fashion, otherwise, I do anticipate that we likely would not make a higher high than we had of today of 39.88, and then we should get the rug pull going into tomorrow. Also on that note, pretty much, I did make the TikTok video. Again, those of you that didn't hear, kind of just highlights a lot of the economic data going on for the week. Most of, if not all of the major earnings for the week as well. But just to give you an insight for tomorrow, again, we have Microsoft, Alphabet, McDonald's, GM, UPS, Coca-Cola. A lot of big names pretty much reporting tomorrow, which could give us a pretty big spin in how the market's going to end up playing out. We also have Chipotle. That actually might be a fire one as well. And then we do have FOMC meeting starting tomorrow as well, which is a 2-day meeting. So I'm going to be looking at two things. Primarily is going to be the second one, but 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow we have new home sales. I don't think there's anything too much to look into that. You could probably look at some of the home building names, maybe even look at a Home Depot and Lowe's on the back end of that earnings tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then also at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow we have consumer confidence. So I don't know want to say necessarily that's going to be a catalyst for a market drop, but I think the drop that we're particularly looking for to be a rug pull here overnight is that I think it's going to be the consumer confidence is likely what's going to be that trigger to likely send us into pretty much a free fall like we saw for maybe I want to say what about 20 minutes of today's price action before we got squeezed. I think we'll see that rug pull on the back end of consumer confidence. All right. So that's just giving you the backdrop of things. In terms of tech names, obviously I mentioned a lot of names in terms of tech have a lot of earnings this week. I think probably the two or maybe three that you kind of want to point to that don't is looking likely, of course, at Tesla. We saw Tesla just in a tight range for most of the day today. I think that it was literally just eating premium all day, and I hope no one necessarily got caught in that. So Tesla's one, Netflix is the other. So Tesla and Netflix already had their earnings. And then in terms of the chips, we do have a lot of pretty much sympathy plays. We have, I believe, NXPI reporting. We have Intel reporting later on. And if I'm not mistaken, we also have Qualcomm later on this week as well. But Nvidia and AMD are the two that are likely the ones that are not juiced up in premiums that you could pretty much take advantage of and playing in sympathy. I don't know if it was NXPI that was reporting this afternoon. I believe it's tomorrow morning. Yeah, so tomorrow morning we'll hear from NXPI earnings. That'll likely play right into the favor of trying to pretty much look at Nvidia and AMD and see how that ends up playing out. We saw a lot of different puts on the chip names, so that's something that caught my attention. But being the fact that we have more than one catalyst this week in terms of the chip sector, I'm a little bit more skeptic than trying to force that situation to happen. The Nvidia puts between now until like I think September, October, we're literally just hitting the table left and right for most of the day. I think the level twos went up like 4 or 5 times today. Now, am I pretty much trying to jump into that necessarily? No, because again, they have multiple catalysts. You have NXPI tomorrow, you have Intel, and you also have Qualcomm. That could pretty much play a factor in how those names end up moving. All right, so that's something to also keep in mind. But other than that, let's see if we do have any kind of earnings run up, which I'll be honest with you, I don't necessarily expect it tomorrow. I expect it to come on Wednesday for whatever earnings are pretty much left on the back end of the second half of the week. So I expect pretty much our rug pull will get some kind of slight green or gap up tomorrow. Then we should get a gap and we should get a meltdown. And then I would expect that we kind of rebound Wednesday, in which will probably play right into what Apple's earnings are going to be on for Thursday. All right. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. I will kind of see what the update is and how we're leaning towards FOMC minutes. And we'll probably discuss that tomorrow afternoon to see how the market kind of shapes up going into Wednesday. But other than that, there's not too much I said to keep a lookout on. The other thing is just keeping an eye on the newsletter plays. I kind of tried to see, those safe haven type of plays for the newsletter this week. I got tagged a few times this morning on I think one or two of them that were kind of trending in the right direction. Formations were going well, so keep an eye on that. I also tagged ideas channel to keep an eye on one specifically. So I would pay attention to the ideas channel and the newsletter plays particularly to see those kind of low key safe plays that don't end up chopping premium or get slaughtered in the middle of all this price action. All right. But I think that's kind of what I just wanted to pretty much touch basis on. Again, be careful with earnings this week, especially those of you that like to gamble with earnings. Keep it small. I think you're going to have a better opportunity going into next week rather than forcing a lot of situations. For those of you that didn't learn today, with all that chop going on today, if you didn't take advantage of that learning opportunity, be like, you know what, let me wait for the direction to move. I would wait for next week more so, especially those of you that have, emotional trades. I want to say wait for next week more so, or wait for most of these tech earnings to be done, in which case we'll have to wait until Apple necessarily on Thursday afternoon. And then maybe 0 day will actually be fun this Friday. So that's pretty much just a highlight and some things I wanted to touch bases on. But other than that, I think that kind of concludes short and sweet, going right into Sig and Dapper's class today. And then we'll see what the market wants to give us. We'll give you guys an update on live tomorrow morning. All right. But other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow morning on live. I will kind of cut it short, sweet right there. You guys have a great evening. And again, I'll see you guys on live tomorrow. Later, guys.